Why is the volume so low? Okay, well, here we go. What happens when communities don't vote, don't engage, and don't participate in local leadership decisions? Hmm. Policies don't get passed without community voice. Budgets get approved without accountability. And systems continue operating without addressing the realities impacting everyday people. Good morning, and welcome to Disrupting Poverty Through Leadership That Delivers Results AM Talk Show. I'm your host, Dr. Tekemia Dorsey, and today we're talking about one of the most powerful tools communities have to create change: voting, civic engagement, local leadership participation, and community accountability. Today's episode is titled Voting, Civic Leadership, and Community Power, Advancing Agenda 2030 through Local Engagement and Elections. And this conversation is especially important right now. As president of the Randallstown NAACP Branch 7032B, last night marked our third and final candidates forum before the primary election. Through these forums, we have continued leading the charge in voter awareness, civic engagement, community education, public accountability, and creating opportunities for residents to connect directly with candidates seeking office. And I want to personally thank community leaders, volunteers, residents, organizers, candidates, supporters, and my executive committee for helping make these forums impactful and successful. Because civic engagement is not just political participation. It is leadership in action. And to be honest, from the first county executive candidates forum that the Randallstown NAACP branch kicked off back in October, we started the whole county executive candidates landscape. Then we came back in January of this year and hosted a candidates forum for new individuals running for the very first time. And then we knew 10 months ago, last night would have been a final and third one. So last night we had the opportunity not just to bring out new faces that were running that completed their application after our January forum and right before the election deadline, but we also had the opportunity to bring out incumbents, those that are already in office that are rerunning again and hopefully with your vote. And what I really loved about October's event, where we had over 250 people, our January's event, which was virtual, we had over 150 people, and then a room full of individuals last night back at the Randallstown Community Center, is that although it had candidates there running for almost every office represented throughout county and Baltimore County constituents, it was just people learning one another for the first time. We had college students there, regular students there, young students there, candidates, but even in the room, you could tell those individuals that were running for these various positions didn't know each other, didn't know the platform, didn't know what it was who they were and why they were running. So that's what leadership in action looks like, right? It looks like not just bringing out people because people we think people automatically know what's happening. Constituents were rolling through the door at 5:36 p.m. The event didn't start until 6, and candidates were still setting up. One lady was out in the parking lot at 5 o'clock. And the one thing that she said, amongst others that I had an opportunity to speak to, was, I don't know who these people are. I don't know what they're running for. And I wanted to look them up. And it made me feel good as president and as the organizer, because that's why we put this together, right? I said, well, the great thing is, luckily, we have a good portion of them all in one spot. And she was grateful and thankful. And although we sent the message out, not everyone read it, but we allowed the candidates up to 3 to 5 minutes to talk about who they are, why they were running, why people should vote for them, in that last Hail Mary before the primaries. That's leadership in action, right? And it's always great when organizations are doing things and putting things in motion and the way they should be, but to see it being brought to life and people sitting around listening, taking notes, going table to table, because we set it up in a fair kind of venue. So candidates were set up with their marketing material, and constituents could just go from table to table. And then when the people were handed the mic, they had 5 minutes to come alive. And it was phenomenal for people to sit back and listen and sit back and take notes and then go over to individuals and ask. And then what we didn't expect, but it worked out really well, at the end, the constituents had an opportunity to ask 2 to 3 questions. Turned out really well. Leadership in action. Okay, back to the podcast. So let's begin by understanding why local elections matter so much. Because they really do matter. And this culture and landscape, as I stated in my closing last night, we need people to show up. I don't care if you're independent. Well, independents can't vote right now, but Democrats and Republicans, we need you to show up regardless. Your vote matters. And here in the county that I live in, we have a total leadership overhaul from county executive. Our districts are expanding from 7 to 9. And not only do we add an additional 2 seats, but now we're having at least 7 out of 9 new county council. We have a new in a position or in a search for a new superintendent, chief of staff, so on and so forth in the school system. Then it's the Board of Education, people rerunning, people being appointed, people running for reelection, new inspector general, new deputy inspector general, from my understand, and the list goes on and on. So in our county alone, the leadership landscape, I think sheriff, state's attorney, register wills, and the list goes on and on, right? So being able to connect with these candidates and those that are running and develop relationships and helping to understand who they are and things like that has been extremely rewarding. But the NAACP is nonpartisan. I like everybody, but we're not political. And my personal views are absolutely different from the organization that I represent. But the key about it is providing a platform and an opportunity for people to be seen, heard, and understand. And that's not just important from local leadership in action, but it's important to our local elections, because we're having a brand new slate, it's going to take a minute for stabilization to occur in Baltimore County because there's too many moving pieces. Exiting, too many moving pieces coming in, and a lot of personalities that's going to try to fit mold under one smooth and harmonious transition. Is it possible? Absolutely. Is it going to be some rough patches? Absolutely. But hopefully, people are going to be more informed before hitting and not just voting based off race and gender, but really the best person for the job prior to going into the primaries, early voting in primaries. So many people focus on national elections, right? And it's nothing wrong with focusing on national elections because this is one of those times of the year that they should be. But local leadership decisions affect education systems, right? Local leadership affects housing policies. Local leadership affects public safety. Local leadership affects transportation. Local leadership affects healthcare access. Local leadership affects economic development. Local leadership affects community investments. A family struggled with school transportation challenges impacting attendance and academic consistency. We hear about it every day, regardless of what school system you're part of. If students are taking public transportation or school transportation, there are issues, right? And the issue was not, most issues are not simply operational, and neither was it in this scenario. The issue was tied to local policy decisions and leadership priorities. And the truth, local elections shape everyday community experience. And communities must understand the power of local governance. And that's what almost every community district is going through, whether it's a transition shift in superintendent or transition shift in county executive and superintendent or board of education, inspector general, and the list goes on and on. Local voter, and why is this so important to voter awareness and education? Because voting is important. We are in a time that if you're not part of the solution in voting, then you remain a problem. And we got enough problems locally, globally, culturally, stately, you name it, we got problems. So voting is important, but civic engagement must continue beyond the ballot box. And we saw that last night, and it was echoed last night. And that's what we're hearing with what we're doing as the Randallstown NAACP, what other organizations are doing. It's not just about bringing together a forum of people that you see every other day on social media. And now ads are running. It's really about being informed and making sure that you're understanding who you're voting for and why, right? And what they stand for. Because guess what? Just like we've learned, people voted in who they wanted in that White House, and now you're paying for it. Do you want that for locally another 2 to 4 years? While we're dealing with a global crisis that's trickling down and that's sending us backwards decades. Is that what you want? Well, I can say that's not what we need. So voting is important, but civic engagement must continue beyond the ballot box. That include attending forums, right? That include asking informed questions. You know, one of the candidates stated last night, well, one wasn't ready to get up on stage. Glad he did. The county executive people at the end weren't ready for the questions. So, but asking those and they were really good questions, right? Understanding the policy issues. It's a lot happening, but this is considered to be the off season, right? It's very important that you're understanding the policies that are around you, those that are representing it, and how it's going to have an impact on your local governance, state governance, global governance, so on and so forth. And then holding leadership accountable. You can be accountable, you can hold leadership accountable and not be ignorant, right? Or hold leadership accountable and not be rude. Hold leadership accountable, and we don't care if you're red, white, blue, purple, Democrat, independent, Republican. Don't be disrespectful. Be respectful of the people that are holding that office, because guess what? Those are your leaders, and leaders know leaders, and leaders talk. So if you want to be impactful, don't be rude, but hold them accountable. And that also means participating in public forums. What I dislike is seeing key forums overlapping on the same night. Last week, we had, in our local governance, we had a meeting on data centers. And I think in the same night, we had it on budgets or something like that. Two very important hot topics overlapping at the same time. Poor planning. Because you're asking the voters to either go to a data center meeting or go talk to your local governance. Both impact where we live. Poor planning, but show up to public meetings. The Randallstown NAACP Candidates Forum Fair was designed to give residents direct access to candidates, encourage informed decision making, strengthen community awareness, and promote transparency and accountability. Democracy works best when communities stay informed and engaged consistently. As I mentioned, this was our third forum, and in between other things we did, but there are a lot of other organizations that are still holding forums that you should be a part of. And not just for county executive, but for all of those that are available for any position a candidates are running for. But too many communities stay disconnected from local leadership for whatever reason. I'm encouraging you, don't be disconnected like pipes and my sump pump, but be connected like the towel on the wall, the baseboard on the floors. Stay with me. All right. Many residents do feel ignored, underrepresented, politically disconnected, and unheard in the decision-making spaces. This is true on all levels. Residents may feel ignored, but that's where the leadership within you, your mirrored image, have to come out, right? Because people can only ignore you as much as you allow yourself to be ignored. And if there's an issue that's directly impacting you, or if there's a topic that's near dear to your heart, or if you're passionate or really about the change in your community or whatever the case might be, then you might feel ignored the first time. But elected officials work for you. If they don't answer the first time, try not to take it personal. Fifth, sixth time, you might take it a little personal, but don't stop, because you got to look at the climate they're in. And I'm not giving excuses. What I'm emphasizing is that outreach is great, but follow through is the moneymaker, right? So you have to follow through, stay connected, be a part of forums, walk up to them, be respectful, hold a conversation. Don't just jump straight in with problems. And residents are going to feel underrepresented if, again, they're not showing up. Because guess what? It's the power of the vote that's going to get people in the office that either look like you, representing you, or don't have anything to do with you. So if you're feeling underrepresented, then lead a coalition of people to get involved, to get out there, community walk, whatever. Stacey Abram Adams lost the election for governor of Georgia by 550,000 votes. She stepped back and rallied and registered 500,000 new voters. Okay, I think it speaks for itself. And this is why forums and public engagement spaces matter, right? A resident attended a candidates forum for the first time and realized how local decisions directly impacted their family, right? And whoops, there we go. And the experience changed their level of involvement. They began attending meetings, asking key questions, and encouraging others to vote because engagement creates empowerment. And right now, people do feel like they're not empowered because so many things are being rolled back. So many things are happening on so many levels, on various levels, and in various contexts and contexts. And right now, some people are feeling the the thrust of those decisions, and some people have yet to feel it. But when you are engaged, and it only takes one, right? And then you meet others or showing up at one and then you show up at others, you do feel empowered because you feel like you're part of the conversation. You're now learning new things. Now you're putting a name with a face with an issue. You know, as I was driving to the forum last night, our forum, when you go up Liberty Road, because we held it in Randallstown Community Center, when you're riding up Liberty Road, you see all of the signs, right? And so, you know, making sure I'm not causing an accident, I'm looking to the left and looking to the right, and I'm seeing all of these faces. And one face I had not seen before, but because it was this great big poster, when I saw him walk in the forum as a candidate, I knew who he was. I was like, oh, that's cool. You know, I laughed and joked and was like, hey, I knew who you was by your poster. And so that was great being able to do so. But it was even more impressive to not just be able to see a poster for the first time and getting to know who this person is from behind an email, but really being able to hear what he had to say about the platform he's running for. And in all of the candidates, it was so many of them. I wish we would have added a fourth form somewhere. Um, but I think we did what we could, which was that trifecta. And you know, we accomplished our goals, not just in numbers, but also impact. But again, it was great to kind of hear and see and understand what these individuals why they're running, right? And this conversation directly aligns with Agenda 2030. Now, if you haven't been following me and my podcast dealing with Agenda 2030, the goal with Agenda 2030 is to end poverty by 2030. And we're already in 2026, right? And instead of going forward, we're going backwards by a couple hundred years. So 2030 might end up being 2040. But anyway, every day above ground is an opportunity to make a difference. So, Agenda 2030 emphasizes inclusive institutions, public participation, reduce inequalities, and community-centered leadership, especially through SDG, which stands for Sustainable Development Goals, reduce inequalities, SDG 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions, and SDG 17, partnerships for the goals, right? Agenda 2030 recognizes sustainable development requires public engagement. It's not enough public engagement that can go around. Communities cannot be left out of shaping decisions, right? Whether it's education, economic opportunity, healthcare, housing, or public investment. And I know one of the really hot topics that we were talking about off cue was that of the search for the new superintendent, right? Counties around us hired firms, they have their superintendent in place. And the way our county happens to do it, some people are unhappy with. And it's not as much transparency and community input as it could be. And that remains a problem, right? So communities should not be left out of shaping decisions for these individuals. And civic participation is part of sustainable leadership. It takes time, it takes organizing, but it's needed. And leadership requires community to move from spectators to participants. Now, if you know me, not only am I the president, not only was I the host last night, but I was recruiting. And I'm laughing because people like, I need to renew my membership. People like, I want to get involved. And I'm like, don't leave until I get your information. I'll let me take you straight to the website. They was like, you not joking. People like, you don't know her? Yes. Move from spectators to participant because here's what we know. And someone said it great best to me last night. The NAACP is needed now more than ever. So are you a member? Great. If not, go to www.ran, R as in Robert, A as in Apple, N as in Nancy, D as in David, N as in Nancy, double A as in Apple, C as in Charlie, P as in Paul.org, right? And register. The NAACP is needed right now. Not wanted, you're needed. But guess what we need? People like you. So moving from spectators to participant is no joke. We need hands-on individuals from local, state, national, global, and the list continues, right? Whew. I'm pumped up today. I'm kind of, I'm excited from last night. I'm excited for this topic. I'm excited for what's happening. I'm excited, you know, voting is leadership. Voting is leadership. Advocacy is leadership. Community organizing is leadership all day, every day. That's why we're saying you don't have to be an elected official. You don't have to be the president of anything. Well, guess what? You're the president of your home or president of your apartment or president of you, right? That's leadership. And that's what is needed in today's climate: voting, advocacy, community organizing. A young voter attended one of the forums and shared that they had never participated in a local election before. Matter of fact, I have one of them. Shout out to Joshua, right? Professor McLaughlin, Ingrid Sabio McLaughlin's son. He's a senior, a freshman at Morgan. Shout out to Joshua. He was there last night. Shout out to my beloved Joshua. He's a senior at Morehouse and a former first vice president and state treasurer for the youth and college division. They were there last night at our candidates forum. But here's the irony of it. Although they were there as college students and leaders in the community, I know my beloved Joshua has never voted yet because he wasn't 18. He literally just turned 18. So he'll be voting for the first time this year. I think Joshua, I'm not sure if he's voted, but again, he's a young voter. But this young voter who attended one of the forums who had never participated in a local election before, after hearing the candidates discuss economic mobility and educational equity and community investment, he registered to vote and encouraged his friends to participate to vote. How cool was that? He got inspired by being in a room, listening to what people had to say, agreed to not agree, right? But he was like, I need to make a difference, and I make a difference through my vote. And then he turned into a community organizer by getting others to vote. I would drop a mic, but I don't want to break my phone, right? So awareness creates movement. And finally, this work must continue beyond the election cycle. And that is really the harder part, right? Everybody is engaged on election cycle. Then the primaries, then election, boom, it's like calm water. Where everybody go? What happened? Where's the advocacy? Where's the push? Where's the social media? Where's the ads? Where's the outrage? Where's the frustration? Where's the holding people accountable? Where's the leadership? What happened in showing up the forums? It cannot stop, people, because leadership is not seasonal. Nope, it's not. There are issues around you every single day. Matter of fact, waking up each morning is an issue because somebody somewhere is giving somebody above or below holy hell because they ain't wake up. Leadership is not seasonal. We need you to show up every day that you have breath. Communities must remain engaged, right? Moving from spectators to participants. Before elections, during elections, after elections, right? Because accountability requires consistency. Communities must continue asking, are promises becoming policies? People running on campaign promises. Well, we've learned locally, globally, state, people get in office and all of a sudden those promises go out the door. So are promises becoming policies? If they're not, keep showing up. Are policies becoming outcomes? Are they getting passed? Who's supporting them? Who's knocking them down? Now, have they been voted in and now what's happening, right? Are outcomes improving lives? $1 million questions, right? Because it's not either we got to replace the elected official or we got to keep going hard. It's one of the two or both, right? So let's bring this into action. And here is your famous leadership challenge, right? Vote in your local and primary elections. Still got time to register to vote. You got still time to change your address. Go to the Board of Elections, ask the tough questions, figure out what's happening. Attend at least one public meeting or community forum this year. We still got less than 3 to 4 weeks to make a difference. Forums are popping up everywhere. Or go back and listen to a virtual forum, right? Encourage young people and first-time voters to become civically engaged. We need you. Youth are not leaders tomorrow. They were leaders yesterday and today. Get them involved. Stay informed about policies impacting your community. If you're following my podcast at all, whether it's the leadership challenges or the stories or talking about SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals 1, 10, 17, 11, or whatever, it's all about the local leadership and the community, right? Because it's really hard to make a difference and an impact without involving your community. Because here's the truth. Communities that participate shape the future. You don't participate, you still a problem. And we need people to stop complaining behind their computers, behind their address, in their kitchen, in their living room. Stop complaining. Get out and be a part of the solution. Because communities that disengage leave decisions in the hands of others, but it impacts you. That's the irony of it. Communities that disengage leave decisions to the hands of others. And by the time it becomes policies or the person is voted in office, it's too late. And leadership begins when people understand. That's why I'm proud of our Randallstown NAACP 7032B. When I took over in April 2026, after overcoming humps, we hit the ground running and we stay informed. We keep hosting events. We taking on topics. We're trying to be impactful. We're trying to keep the community engaged, whether one show up or 250, right? Because when leadership begins and Leadership begins when people understand their voice matters, their vote matters, and their participation matters. Well, I absolutely love this. I had a hellish kind of week with my basement flooding twice. So it's good to kind of be back to things a little bit, feeling kind of empowered, even though now I got to get my basement finished and some other stuff because, you know, we have good days, we have bad days. But again, any day that we can breathe and wake up, those are phenomenal days. So thank you to everyone who supported the Randallstown NAACP Branch 7032B Candidates Forum Fair and helped strengthen voter awareness and civic engagement in our community. Follow Disrupting Poverty Through Leadership That Deliver Results AM talk show. Share with us, why civic engagement matters in your community. And tag a leader, a voter, an advocate, an organizer committed to strengthening community voice and accountability. Because Agenda 2030s require more than just policy decisions. It requires informed, engaged communities willing to lead through participation and action. Whew. It's early in the morning. I got a lot of energy. The sun is out. I'm having a good mood. I'm hoping this mood is coming over to you. Thanks for listening to this episode. Go back and rewind, download, share in your network, listen to the audio on the way to work. Go back and listen to the other podcasts, share, listen, rewind, so on and so forth. And let us know how we're doing. Let us know the topics that matter to you. Tag a leader. How are the leadership challenges going? How have you grown? What are your barriers you're still going through? Let us know. Let me know. But until then, truly appreciate you. See you on the other side and have a great day until then. Be engaged, get engaged, and move from spectator to participant. Till next time, peace out.